Now to COVID-19 in Georgia and a new sobering record in the battle against the virus. The state reporting more coronavirus-related deaths than any other day during the pandemic yesterday, with 145 lives lost. The last time we came anywhere close to that daily number was back in early August of last year. In all, 10,444 Georgians have died of COVID. 5,700 COVID patients are in the hospital right now. This is the highest it's ever been. The number of ventilators in use in Georgia also hitting a new record yesterday. The need for people to get vaccinated is greater now more than ever. In a briefing at the state capitol, Governor Brian Kemp fired up and frustrated over the state's slow vaccine distribution, at one point threatening to fire up his own pickup truck to get it out more quickly. Thousands of people are now eligible for it, but are finding it hard to book an appointment. Christy Diaz is live outside the state capitol this morning. And Christy, the governor issuing a warning for providers who he says are stockpiling the vaccines.
He was visibly frustrated, but his message was clear. He said the stockpiling, that stops now. He wouldn't name any names, but he said some major healthcare providers have been holding back some of the vaccines instead of getting them into people's arms. And he said if that continues, the state will take possession to make sure vaccines continue. He also said some providers aren't reporting the shots they are giving, which makes the numbers look lower than they really are. And he said he is working with the federal government to get more shots.
I'm hopeful that we'll get more doses from the feds and we'll be able to get more seniors vaccinated. Our goal is to make sure that we're getting every dose that we have in an arm.
Now, about 2 million Georgians are currently eligible to receive the vaccine, but the state's only getting enough doses to give to a small fraction of that number. And he says expect demand to outpace supply for several months.
So just how slow is Georgia's vaccine rollout? New CDC data suggests the Peach State is the fourth slowest state in getting people vaccinated. Liza Lucas is at the 11 Alive Bridge for us this morning. And Liza, what are experts saying about solutions to help speed up this process?
Sheba, time, money, and resources. That is what the experts in logistics and public health told us would help turn this issue around when it comes to Georgia. Now, according to Dr. Harry Hyman, he believes the lack of investment in public health is one of the biggest issues that really needs to be addressed.
This is a true crisis. And one of the things that the legislature needs to seriously look at is our investment in public health infrastructure, that we not only ensure that Georgians have access to vaccinations, but that we are able to meaningfully respond to this pandemic.
Now, back to the solutions. Our experts are in agreement that more funding needs to be paid towards education when it comes to the vaccine, especially given the hesitancy that has been reported in rural areas. In addition, they believe the hiring of more staff, training more people to administer the vaccine is needed, as well as IT support to help avoid some of the computer glitches that we saw unfold on Monday. Now, Governor Kemp, he addressed these issues as well as those CDC numbers yesterday, and he said that state officials are working to address what they believe is a discrepancy, a data lag of 3 to 4 days when it comes to the CDC and state numbers, as well as Christy mentioned, that underreporting.
All right, Liza, and 11 Alive is committed to getting the answers you need when it comes to the COVID-19 vaccine. We have links on 11alive.com to help you track who's eligible, find a vaccination site near you, and to make an appointment. Just click on the special COVID-19 Vaccine Access tab at the top of the homepage.